Hello everyone, my name is Luke Stevens. This is my son Lachlan. We're going to talk to you about some video games today. Specifically, we wanted to talk about Days Gone. There's been some news in the last few days, broken as a result of some tweets by Days Gone's former director at Sony Bend. Yeah, that have totally blown all of us away and surprised a lot of people because it goes directly in the face of the narrative that Sony themselves put forward with regards to Days Gone. And that was a narrative centered around the game's failure. They said the game was not reviewed particularly well, which is generally true. It got mostly 7 out of 10, so that's fair. They said that the game didn't sell very well and the fan response wasn't overwhelmingly positive, which is why they declined to renew it for a sequel, why the franchise has largely been abandoned, and why a lot of the development staff that worked on Days Gone left the studio to go and pursue other projects because they felt like this thing they spent years working on just didn't work out. Yeah, it turns out like none of that's true. Like at all. This is very surprising to me. It's very surprising to a lot of people, and we're going to talk about it. Real quick, I want to apologize for my throat. I'm recovering from COVID. I got the COVID-19 Pro Max Ultra DLC expansion pack. Despite being fully upgraded to 5G and everything, it still hit me very, very hard. My throat's still recovering, so forgive my voice. It is what it is. And yes, Lachlan is doing very, very good. He didn't get sick at all. He's a little super soldier. But before we delve into all the nitty-gritty details, quick thank you to our sponsor for this video, Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon is saving the mornings of countless adults who, like me, long for sugary deliciousness but just can't justify the lack of nutrition or the high calorie counts. Because, you know, being an adult means that you have to give up all of those wonderful breakfast cereals that you loved so much as a kid. But does it have to mean that? No. Magic Spoon makes delicious cereals designed for adults. They're high in protein, keto-friendly, gluten-free, soy-free, and they come in lots of delicious flavors. Like my personal favorite, Fruity, which is virtually identical in taste to that fruity cereal we all used to shove into our faces as kids. But this time, I don't have to feel bad about it. No joke, I've become such a fan of Magic Spoon as a result of doing this sponsored segment that I've already ordered enough to get me through the next 3 months. I love it, my wife loves it, I cannot recommend them enough. Check them out today at the link in the description box below or in the pinned comment, and make sure to use promo code LukeStevens at checkout for $5 off. Or you can just go to magicspoon.com/Luke Stevens to save $5 today. So what exactly happened with Days Gone? Well, Jeff Ross, the game's director, hopped on Twitter and sent out some interesting information in the last few days that explains a lot. You see, the consensus was that Days Gone didn't sell well, players weren't that interested, and it was reviewed very, very poorly, which kind of created a circle of self-fulfilling prophecy where the reviews were bad, so players didn't buy it, they didn't engage with it, the game was forgotten, and everybody moved on. That wasn't accurate, actually. You see, he stayed with Sony Bend, the studio behind Days Gone, for about a year and 7 months after the game's initial launch. And being one of the heads of the studio, he actually had access to a lot of the financial data for the game's performance, a lot of information that a lot of gaming journalists and personalities who were commenting on the success or failure of Days Gone didn't have access to. We were just inferring this because Sony never released it. And for the most part, we just assumed if Sony doesn't brag about the performance of a game, it's probably because the game wasn't that successful. It just makes sense. Like, if it's really good, you're going to brag about it. If it sucks, you're probably going to skip over it and just pretend like it didn't happen. So we just assumed the performance wasn't that great, but it turns out it was really good. Jeff Ross says that the game sold over 8 million copies since its launch in that year and a half after it released, and that they sold also another 1 million+ copies on Steam. That's like really good. Bear in mind, the game has gone on to sell more since then. He hasn't been with the studio in a hot minute. So this game was not a financial flop, at least in any sort of metric or consideration that you could point to in terms of units sold. It sold close to 10 million copies in a year and a half. That is a number that very few publishers, very few game developers could ever hope to dream of selling. That's a phenomenal achievement. And what makes this even better is that Ghost of Tsushima, which did very, very well in terms of sales, critical reception was off the charts, they just passed 8 million units sold and bragged all about it, got a Game Informer piece written about their phenomenal performance. They've been talked up relentlessly as a result of it. Well, it turns out Days Gone has actually sold more copies. That's crazy. And that's what sparked all of this. Jeff was responding and retweeting an article by Game Informer talking up Ghost of Tsushima and its 8 million copies sold, which is phenomenal, and said, well, listen, like, let's just point out Days Gone has sold more than this as well, but nobody talks about it as being a fantastic release. Nobody talks it up. Everybody has just moved on and acted like it was a huge flop, when in reality, it really wasn't. And I absolutely agree. I gave Days Gone my game of the year in 2019, mainly because I didn't want to give it to Death Stranding, but also because it represented a game I wanted to see more of. I wanted to see what a Days Gone 2 would look like. I thought it had so much potential, and Sony, turns out, just shut it down. They refused to fund a sequel. They didn't want to give it the time of day, and at the time we thought that made sense because the game wasn't financially very impressive. It didn't perform that well, but that narrative has also been exploded now because it turns out it did very, very well. Now, I've been thinking about this for a few hours at this point, trying to come up with some reason why Sony would have responded so negatively to Days Gone when in reality it performed very, very well. I can't come up with anything. I don't think it's a grand conspiracy. I think there's just some issue with the higher ups at Sony where they think that there's only enough room for like one zombie franchise. That's going to be The Last of Us, so forget it, move on, give the Sony Bend team something else to work with. Or maybe they just didn't like how buggy the game was and they felt like it was an embarrassment for them, and as a result they're punishing the studio for putting it out. I don't know why Sony and PlayStation would actively put down what seems to be a real accomplishment for their own ecosystem as Days Gone has been. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. And before anybody says it, I don't think that Jeff is lying about this. I, for one, don't know why he would throw something like this out if it weren't true. You know, he doesn't like the higher ups at Sony. That's not a mystery. If you follow him on Twitter, he feels like they really shafted him on this, but that doesn't mean that he would talk them up and say that they had a fantastic success on their hands. And also, if PlayStation wanted to refute this narrative, they could just come out and say, nope, the game didn't sell very well at all. These numbers are not accurate. We're not going to tell you what the real numbers are, but these numbers are not accurate. We don't know why Jeff is doing this. It would be embarrassing for Jeff and it would shut him down immediately, but they haven't done that. At least as of the time of this recording, they've stayed mum, which all of that would point to these numbers being accurate and the performance of Days Gone actually being really good. All of this to say, it looks like Days Gone actually performed very, very well. There are some diehard fans out there. Lachlan and I both love Days Gone and we think it's really, really good. And there's a lot of people that gave the game another chance on PC and have loved it there as well. And I guess if there's a broader point to this video, it's not to push Sony to make a sequel, because at this point it looks like that's already a foregone conclusion. That ship has sailed. Rather, I would just encourage you to give the game a shot. If you were one of those people that was talked out of playing Days Gone back in 2019 because of the reviews or because some YouTubers were giving it kind of piss takes, give it a shot now. Just try it. If you have a PS5, if you have PC, give it a shot. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And maybe you'll join the sort of cult following that's grown up around the game recently, because a lot of us are looking at this game saying it's actually really good, and it doesn't make sense why Sony has been giving it so much crap for so long. But I think Lachlan's getting a little restless, so I'll call it there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking the video and subscribing. Head down to the description box to check out all of my social media links. But thank you for watching. I love you all. Lachlan loves you all. From all of us here in the Stevens household, we love you. We'll see you soon.